So we finally got the preview for Genesis Ras, and after watching it, I want to go over and give my early thoughts on him. Starting off with his stats, he's a Libra Light Knight, the one and only 5-star Libra Knight currently in the game. As of making this video, the Libra Knight stat line has the second highest base HP for Knights, and the third highest base defense for Knights. The highest base HP for Knight currently belongs to those with the Sagittarius star sign, which there are a handful of, such as Yuala, Dragonbride, Senya, and Fallen Cecilia, with a 6840 base. The highest defense goes to Capricorn, the only one currently being Boss Runka with 822 defense. So while Ras may not have the highest, it's still in the higher amounts for Knight base stats. His speed though is quite low. 99 base speed is the second slowest Knight speed, shared with Leo Knights. Capricorn again being the slowest at 93. He comes with a 12% base effect resistance. This will be important a bit later. Now to go over his skills real quick. His S1 is just a basic attack that scales with his max HP and gives himself 25% combat readiness. Nothing too impressive. His S2 inflicts Sion Disintegration on a single enemy for 2 turns, then attacks them. A critical hit for an extra turn, and a 10 soul burn to ignore resistance. Max HP scaling again with 3-turn cooldown. Disintegration is the new debuff that decreases the target's max health by 25%, but doubles if it's a hero. His S3 attacks all while ignoring defense, scales with his max health, less targets for more damage, and has a 4-turn cooldown. His S3 also provides him with a unique buff at the start of battle for 5 turns, Sacred Covenant. The buff gives him immunity to debuffs, and if he dies while the buff is up, he revives with full health. A little detail to mention is that all his skill enhancements are just damage dealt increases. And lastly, they showed off the new 7th anniversary artifact. Unlike previous anniversary artifacts that just increase friendship gain, this one actually does something notable, increasing health by 10% and gaining 10 souls at the start of the user's turn, twice per battle. So now that I've gone through all that, let's talk about my thoughts on his kit. So immediately, there's something conflicting I saw when watching the preview. His new unique buff, Sacred Covenant, is basically a 5-turn immunity plus revised buff, so basically he's immune to all debuffs. His stat line has 12% effect resistance, which is essentially a waste of stats that could have gone elsewhere. He's not the only unit that has wasted stats like this. For example, Fire Charlotte has additional crit chance in her base, even though her attacks have the effect of always landing a critical hit. It's just that it's stats that could have gone elsewhere or could have been a different star sign. I know regular Ras is also a Libra Knight, so maybe that's why they made Genesis Ras as well. I'm just assuming. But keep in mind, if you're not familiar with star signs in epicseven, they have nothing to do with the lore. They in the class decide the baseline stats for units. We've had units have their star signs change on multiple occasions, even had the stats themselves for specific star signs changed. And same name characters don't need to share star signs. Like every variation of Tenebria is different. Anyways, his S2 has the requirement of landing a critical hit to get his extra turn. This means his general build will likely aim for crit rate and crit damage with high HP. He has a baseline 15% crit rate and a 150% crit damage. That's a lot of gear rolls you have to invest in those 2 stats that could have been eased, even if just by a few gear rolls. On a positive note, I do think he has a lot of potential applications in PvP. In case you forgot, Seal and Disintegration are applied before attacking. This has a lot of uses, especially the Seal. This allows him to do things such as negate evasion-based passives before attacking, negate the passives that prevent a unit from taking more than half health, and even in the showcase, negate Ilinov's passive, which then allows his S3 to do its full penetration damage. Although do keep in mind that Disintegration is not a unique debuff, it's a regular debuff, meaning having to deal with effectiveness and resistance checks, dealing with being 15%ed, it can be cleansed, can't go through immunity, units that are completely immune to debuffs like Bystander Hui Yang, and the debuff itself can just run out, and so on. However, I am skeptical of his use in PvE content. The Disintegration debuff states that it has double the effect on heroes. This implies that it can work in PvE, bosses have a huge amount of HP, so taking out 25% of it could really speed up a fight. But I'm curious if they'll actually allow its usage or just have the majority of bosses be immune. It wouldn't surprise me if they did the latter. Seal is pretty much unusable in PvE as pretty much every boss is immune to it. If both effects become unusable, he'll likely become near obsolete in PvE content. Remember that his unique buff, Sacred Covenant, is not permanent, unlike a unit like Ruel, who has a similar unique revived buff. Genesis Ras' buff is only up for 5 turns. After it runs out, he loses his immunity and his revived effect. You might think 5 turns is pretty long, but remember that his S2 is an extra turn. This means his unique buff will actually be gone in about 3 turns. Now the last thing I want to comment on regarding his kit, is the artifact. So it appears that the anniversary artifact was made for Genesis Ras to be able to soul burn his S2 to ignore resistance to land his debuffs. This artifact is stated to be from the anniversary login rewards. Does that mean it won't be obtainable after the event is done? I know the old anniversary artifacts aren't obtainable once the event is over. It would really suck if this is the case for players who started after, as it's a pretty decent artifact. I'm hoping they at least provide an alternative, but only time will tell. Personally, I think I'll be trying different artifacts on him. Like I previously mentioned, Seal before attacking into evasion unit paired with something like Symbol of Unity, or even Brieg's artifact, Broken Will, would allow Ras to hit most evasion units. I'm sure a lot of people will opt for a counter set build just because he's so slow already and his S1 provides a large combat readiness boost. Alternatively, you could just go with Elbrus. Putting Holy Sacrifice on him might seem counterintuitive, but if he's going to lose his revive buff anyways, why not? I'm sure it'll surprise some players. Then there's the usual tank artifacts and damage artifacts you could always go with. He does feel kind of versatile in that sense. But yeah, overall, those are my early thoughts on him. I do wish he had a bit more, but I guess with him being a free unit, this is what they're willing to give everyone. Yeah, that's about it.